Alright, I'm going to be showing you how to make some buttons inside of Flash that have a nice kind of rollover effect and can be easily duplicated and used within a Flash project to create a website. So we'll go ahead and show you what we're going to be doing first. Test our movie, hitting Control Enter here. Just going to be simple rollovers, but kind of a nice fading effect, and when you click on them, based on what the text says within the button, it's going to go to a different section relating to that text. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start over with a new file, ActionScript 3.0 file. And the first thing I want to do here is add in my ActionScript layer, and I always lock mine, just, I don't know, that's what I do, to make sure I don't put any graphics on it or anything, keep it nice and clean. And we'll start out by creating our first button. So I'm going to go ahead and hit R on my keyboard to bring up my rectangle tool and draw out a button on the stage. I'm going to select that button and hit F8 on my keyboard. Actually, F8 doesn't work right now. So I'm going to right click and convert this to a symbol. Converting it to a symbol will allow me to make it a movie clip, and I'm going to call this MovieClip underscore button. Change that to a movie clip, set my registration point, and click OK. You'll notice over here in our properties it's created a movie clip. This is going to be the button that we'll be using and duplicating to create the other four, but let's go ahead and set up the first one. So I'm going to double click inside of here, and we want to make a nice animation out of this graphic. So up here in my timeline, I'm going to right click and say create motion tween. To create the fading animation, I'm going to drag the motion tween over to frame 24 and go ahead and put in a couple of keyframes, one at frame 12 and one at frame 24. And again, to do the keyframes, you just click where you want it to go, then hit F6 on your keyboard. That'll insert a keyframe. So after I do that, I want to click on my graphic, and under my properties and color effect, I'm going to change none to brightness, and I'm going to leave the brightness alone on frame 24 because I want it to be the same on frame 24 and frame 1. And I'm going to hop over to frame 12 and change that brightness to somewhere around 40. So what you'll get if you're scrolling over here is you notice that it gets just slightly brighter to frame 12, and it looks like its brightness is sticking. So let's go to frame 24, click on our graphic again, and pull that brightness down to 0. Okay, so what we should get is when you scrub through this, you'll notice it gets brighter and in the center, and then it remains the same brightness on frame 1 and frame 24. Alright, I'm going to rename this layer to my animation, and go ahead and add a new layer. We'll call this one labels. Put some frame labels in here to control the playback. So again, put in new keyframes, we're going to click on frame 2 and hit F6. That'll create a new keyframe. Then we'll click on frame 13, I believe, and hit F6 to create one more keyframe. And on these two keyframes, on frame 2, we'll give it a label of over, because when the user mouses over that graphic, we want it to go to and play that over state, which will give it that lighter effect. And on frame 13, we'll give it a frame label of out. So when the user mouses out of that rectangle, it goes and plays from that out label, goes back to its normal state, and hops over to the beginning. And I'm going to add one more layer here for my little bit of ActionScript, because right now if we were to test the movie, you'll notice it just keeps playing over and over. Obviously we don't want that. So we need to add a little bit of ActionScript here to add a stop frame. Let me resize my window. It's a bit large. There we go. So we're just going to put a simple stop action right there. And then also when the user mouses over it, it's going to go to in play. So we want it to stop when it gets to that very middle part. We don't want it to keep playing back to its original state. So I'll add another keyframe at frame 12. Pull up my ActionScript again and say stop. Okay. If you haven't saved your work by this time, go ahead and save it. Make sure you don't lose anything. Alright, so now that the work is saved, what you should have right now if you were to test it would be a button on the stage doing absolutely nothing. We're going to write some action script so that when you mouse over this button, it'll go to that over label and play. That'll stop at frame 12, and then when you mouse off of the button, it'll go to that out label, play out, and then because of the way Flash works, it'll loop around in the beginning and stop at frame 1. So let's go ahead and I'm going to come out of this movie clip. So I'm going to go back to scene 1. Instead of writing all of the action script on the stage, what we're going to do is actually create another movie clip to hold this current movie clip we have. So I'm going to give this movie clip an instance name of MC_button, because that's kind of the button that we're going to be using. And I'm going to hit, I'm going to convert this to a symbol again, and you can hit F8 on your keyboard. And for this one, we're going to call it MC_holder, because this is going to be holding our button so that we can use it and duplicate it over and over again, which you'll kind of see towards the end of the tutorial. So I'm going to call that MC_holder and hit OK. What that'll do is that'll create another movie clip, so we can double click on the movie clip MC_holder, and you'll notice that the animations we've set up isn't in this timeline anymore. You'll have to double click one more time to get inside of the button movie clip to view the animations. And this is kind of our structure that we've got set up for the movie clips. So I can go back one, and inside of this movie clip holder is where we're going to be writing our action script. So I'm going to go ahead and name this MC_button so I know what's on that layer, and create a new layer for my action script. I'm going to go ahead and click on that layer and bring up my actions frame, which is F9 on your keyboard. And we'll go ahead and write the action script that will tell the button to go to and play certain frame labels whenever you mouse over it. So to start, we want to reference our movie clip of button, MC_button dot add event listener. If you'll recall, adding an event listener will basically tell Flash, we're waiting for an event to happen within the Flash file. So the event listener we're going to be adding on this particular one will be a mouse event, because we're waiting for the mouse to go over. And we're going to call this mouse over. When the user mouses over that movie clip _button, we want to run a function, and we're going to call it BT over, because we're acting as a button and we're going to be mousing over it. Right. Once you have that function or that event listener added, BT over is the function that we're going to be calling it, so we need to go ahead and set up that function. To set up a function, you want to start saying function BT_over. This function is going to be an event, and you can tell it it'll be a mouse event. Again, we need to put in this void to let Flash know we're not going to be passing any parameters back and forth. Open a curly bracket, hit enter, and sometimes it adds it for you, sometimes it doesn't, but you want to make sure to have that closing bracket at the end as well. So any script that we write inside of this function is going to execute when we mouse over the movie clip button. So what we want to do is tell movie clip button to go to and play that frame label of over. So with this script that we have right here, when movie clip button is moused over, it'll run that function button over. This function is defined right here, and we're going to basically just tell movie clip button to go to and play that frame label of over. So what'll happen is it'll start playing over, and it'll go until that stop action script in there executes, which will stop it, and we'll wait until we have the mouse out. So I'm going to go ahead and consolidate that a little bit, and to write our mouse out function, we can just copy these first 4 lines of code and paste it right below. Now all we have to do is change a couple of items inside of here. Instead of mouse over, obviously we want mouse out. We're going to change the function name from button over to button out. And again, we'll have to change the function name right here. And instead of going to and play over, we're going to go to and play out. So that should be everything we need to set up the initial mouse over and mouse out. We'll go ahead and test this out here. Control Enter again on your keyboard. Kind of lagging a little bit. When you mouse over it, you should see the graphic get slightly lighter, and when you mouse out, it'll get darker again. So at this point, if you have an error, try to look at your error, see exactly what line of code is coming from. Make sure you have the movie clip named movie clip button inside of the instance name, and just make sure you have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. So when we're done with this, we want to set up a text field that we can go through and actually put in the different text inside of here. So I'm going to add a new layer. Again, I'm still inside of that movie clip holder. And we'll call this txt underscore button label. And I'm just going to add a quick text field inside of here. And we'll put some holder text there, and I'll just call it button label. So obviously you'll want your text to be a different color than the background here. So I'm going to go over to my text properties, change that text to white. Let's make it a little bit larger. We do want to, if it's set at static text, you want to change that to dynamic text. And change the aliasing on it to use device fonts. And I've got mine set up on Verdana, which is a device font that just about everybody has. So the last thing we want to do with this text field is give it an instance name so we can reference it in the ActionScript. I'm going to name it txt underscore button label. Alright. So now that we've done that, everything's set up. We should have an instance name on our text area, and I'm going to make this a little bit larger so all the text actually shows. There we go. Now we can hop back into our code and set this up to where it changes the text. So I'm going to hop over to scene 1 real quick, and I've got my button here with the text inside of it. What I'm going to do is give this button, which should be the movie clip holder, I'll give it an instance name of MC underscore button 1, and go to my ActionScripts frame on frame 1. Bring up my Actions panel, which is F9 on your keyboard again. The first thing I want to do here is put in a stop, because we're going to be adding additional frames to it. And then I want to set the label for the first button. So I'm going to say MC underscore button 1, which is the instance name that we just gave that button. I'm going to say dot txt underscore button label, which is the instance name that we gave that text area. So we have this, if you can kind of see, we have this text inside of here. This is the instance name we gave that text. The last thing I want to do to actually set text inside of there is say dot text. What that does is that gets you inside of the text field. You can use that to either set the text to something, or if you're just filling out a form, you can use it to retrieve the text that's inside of that text area. Right now we're going to be setting it equal to home. So we're going to pretend this is some sort of a portfolio and we have our home section here. So right now if you test that, hit Control Enter on your keyboard again. You'll notice you've got the text inside of there. It says home instead of button label, and when you mouse over it, it does give you that nice mouse over effect. Now one thing about this that you'll notice is if I mouse over the corner, the mouse over effect works, but if I mouse over the text area, it suddenly acts as a mouse out because it's showing this text area as not the button. So what I need to do is actually add a little bit more ActionScript inside of my button. So I'm going to double click on that, and inside of the movie clip holder, grab my actions, and I'm going to add a little bit more ActionScript at the top here. So I'll say MC underscore button dot button mode. Set that equal to true. What this does is instead of having just a regular arrow when you mouse over it, it'll give you that pointer that you normally have when you mouse over a link. The second thing I want to do is make sure that text area does not conflict with the button. So I'm going to say txt underscore button label dot mouse enabled equals false. What that'll do is it'll turn off the mouse actions for this text area, and that'll allow it so that my mouse can kind of see through it and just act as a button. We'll go ahead and test that out. Hit Control Enter on your keyboard, and you'll notice you now have a pointer instead of an arrow, and the button works kind of as it should. So now that we have all that set up, let's go ahead and duplicate our button a couple of times and change the label of it so that it has actual frame labels. Let's see here. And I'm just going to change or duplicate it twice in my tutorial just to make it go a little bit quicker. Now what you want to do is go back to your Actions panel on frame 1. And we want to give the second two buttons different instance names so that we can reference those in the ActionScript. So I've got MC underscore button 1. I'd like to have button 2 and button 3 inside of there. So now that I have those three different instance names set up, I'm going to go into my ActionScript and simply copy and paste this line of code a couple more times. And where it says MC underscore button 1, change that to button 2 and button 3 so that we match up with the instance names we gave the buttons. And change the text inside of there so we know that it's actually working. About, and we'll put a contact page. When you get to that point, you go ahead and test it. Make sure it's all working properly. You have all the different text labels in there. And we'll move on to our final step of putting it together with three different sections to where when you click on it, it automatically knows what section to go to. So I'm going to come in here again. I'm back on scene 1. I'm going to add 2 more layers. One of them is going to be for graphics, and the other one will be labels. So if you'll recall, when you set up different sections inside of Flash, you want to go along your timeline horizontally. So I'm going to set up a new keyframe on frame 5, new keyframe on frame 10, and then I'm just going to extend out the keyframes to frame 15 so I can see the label. So I'm going to hit F5 on my keyboard so it pushes it out without putting in a new keyframe. And again, F6 is for creating those new keyframes. And what we'll want to do on these graphics is just put a different background color on each of the keyframes just so we know we're switching sections. Now typically inside of here, you go through and you have different text. set up in each of the sections, but we're not going to get that detailed in this tutorial. So now we have 3 different backgrounds set up. I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer so I don't accidentally mess with anything. We do need to extend our buttons out to all 3 of the sections, so I'm going to go over to frame 15 on my buttons layer and hit F5 on my keyboard to extend those out. The final thing we want to do here is set up our labels. Just like we did with the graphics layer, I'm going to hit F6 on frame 5, frame 10, and then hit F5 on frame 15 to extend all that out. And then on frame 1, what I'm going to want to do is set up my frame label to be the exact same text that we put in the buttons, capitalization and all. So I'm going to call the first one home, second one about, and the third one contact. With those 3 set up, the home, about, and contact, what we can do is we're actually going to go back into our buttons, add a little bit more ActionScript, but we're going to set it up so that we don't have to add a new event listener for every single button on the stage. We're just going to add it inside of the button once, make it smart function so that we can utilize that over and over again. So I'm going to double click on this button here, and on my ActionScript layer inside of the MovieClip holder, again, I'm going to pull up those ActionScripts, which should be F9 on your keyboard. And at the very bottom here, I'm going to add a little bit more ActionScript. The first thing we want to do is set up an event listener for the current button that we're inside of. So I'm going to say object this. This would be the current movie clip that you're clicking on. Now there's 3 different ones, so it's going to choose which one is the correct one. So object this, add event listener. We're going to set this up as a mouse event, and instead of mouse over or mouse out, we're going to use a click event. The function we'll set up for this, we'll call it go label, so that we can tell it to go to the proper label. So after we're done here, we need to set up a function. Again, it's called go label. It's going to happen on an event, which is going to be a mouse event. We're not passing any data, so we'll set up void and then put your open and close brackets. Inside of here, we're going to go ahead and set up a variable to basically pull the text that is inside of each of the buttons. Variables, if you're not familiar with those, they're basically, just think of it as a box that stores information that we can later call and use in different bits of code. So we're going to set that up by saying var. We'll call this variable frame label and set it equal to the text button label dot text. If you'll recall, when we put text inside of each of the text button labels saying home, about, and contact, we would set that dot text equal to whatever text we want it to be. Since we want to grab the text that's currently inside of each of these and set those in a variable, we just put that dot text on the end of there and don't set it equal to anything. So the last thing we want to do is go back to the home stage. So to do that, we'll say MovieClip parent, which parent gets you right outside of the current movie clip you're in. So we are, get this out of the way. We're currently in MovieClip holder. By saying MovieClip parent, it's going to pull us back out onto scene 1 where we've set up all those other frame labels and sections. And we're going to say .go to and stop. And typically where we'd come in here and put home like that to tell it to go to a certain frame label, we're going to send it to this variable that we've set up. And if you recall, this variable is pulling the text that is in each of the buttons. So I'm going to set that inside of there. And we'll go ahead and test this. So we have home, about, contact. What's going to happen is when we click on this, it's going to grab the text that's inside of that current text area, and it's going to store it inside of that frame label variable, and then tell the parent movie clip, which is the stage, to go to and play about that frame label. Again, capitalization, everything has to be the same, but you set it up, click it, and it goes. Now the great thing about this is we've only created one button, very minimal action script inside of that button, and if you have a website set up with buttons like this and you want to go through and change the color of it a little bit, you just double click inside of that graphic, and say I wanted to come through here and make it a little bit darker. Just do that, change the color, and it changes it with all of my buttons. I don't have to worry about going through and updating each button individually. It's just there and it works. Now if I wanted to add another section, I just come up here to the top, add in a section, go to my action script, duplicate the button on the stage and put the text inside of the button, and just make sure that you have that frame label set up the exact same on your timeline. So it's a quick and easy way to use buttons. You can utilize these in other projects as well, and it gets it to where it can go through all the different stages. I will be following up this tutorial with a tutorial on how to do this with jQuery and HTML, because quite frankly, if you're just doing this inside of Flash, you should be using HTML and jQuery. But I hope you enjoyed this particular tutorial and it helps you kind of learn Flash a little bit. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.